Hi, I'm Andy Slamans.
Hi, I'm Deanna Slamans.
We want to share with you our financial journey over the last 24 years of our marriage. So, Deanna and I, the first 18 years of our marriage, we were really in the social work, human service field. We were house parents at a residential boarding school for 15 years for kids that were financially needy. We thought we were going to retire from that school. We loved our job, we loved what we did. But unfortunately, 14 years into our marriage, we found ourselves deep in credit card debt. We made some bad financial decisions. I think it started when we bought our first house in North Philadelphia. And so we purchased a house in North Philadelphia right off of Broad Street, if you're familiar with the Philly area. And it was really a fixer-upper. We basically began to renovate that house. When really, probably in hindsight, we only spent $50,000 for the house, if you remember. And in hindsight, we probably should have renovated it slowly, but we definitely took the more aggressive approach, right? Do you remember those days?
Yeah, it was about a year from start to finish that we renovated, almost completely gutted, a 5-bedroom, 3-story house.
5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Instead of being patient and just renovating over time, I got a little too aggressive because I wanted to make everything nice, right? This was our third year of marriage. I wanted to have a nice house. And so I started putting things on credit card from Home Depot. Probably shouldn't have. And before you know it, within a year, I think we had about $30,000 in credit card debt, right?
Yes, that's about right.
Prior
to $40,000.
Yeah, prior to that time, we both lived by the philosophy of never carrying a credit card balance. That's just the way we always operated. That's the way I always operated growing up. I was actually a missionary working at an urban church, so I had to raise my support. Deanna was working with Adjudicated Youth, right?
Yeah, I was a caseworker for an organization with Adjudicated Youth, and then I became an administrative assistant for a Christian school.
So neither of our salaries were really that high. So we weren't making enough money to really cover the amount that I was spending renovating the house. 2 years in our marriage, we found that we were deep in debt. The first 14 years of our marriage, we would have those what we call like come to Jesus moments where we would realize, we spent too much. And so then we would take action on how to reduce that debt. And we did that probably 3 or 4 times. And also, I became really good during that time at flipping credit card debt. And so that was before the financial meltdown of 2007. This was like 1998 all the way to 2007. And back then, like credit card companies, like they would give account limits, like just crazy amounts. Like you could get credit super easy. And so what I would do is I would basically just keep flipping. So I'd get one credit card up to 30,000 and then I would flip it to the next one that gave me 6 months of interest-free payments. All I had to do was pay the minimum, but I wasn't paying any interest on those. So I became the credit card flipping king, right? It was really good at it. But we would have, these come to Jesus moments. We realized we were deep in debt. And then we would come up with strategies and we would begin to reduce that debt, right? Do you remember those days?
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, and so, but then unfortunately about 1 to 2 years would go by and then our spending habits would kind of go right back to where they were prior to when we came up with an action plan. So we did that over the first 14 years of our marriage, probably 4 to 5 times. I take 100% responsibility for it. It was really just irresponsible. I was being irresponsible financially. I consider myself now that I was an addict to spending. Yeah. So I know a lot of people get addicted to drugs. Well, I think that getting addicted to spending is very similar. 14 years into our marriage, I can remember we were at the dining room table. We had about $150,000 in credit card debt, which is crazy because we had good paying jobs. And it was just all frivolous consumer spending.
Because at that point we were at Milton Hershey School.
Yes.
So our job income was a lot higher than when we were in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so, it's just kind of insane, to think about it because we should have had like $300,000 in the bank. But again, I think that we were addicts, but we came, and I can remember it was a dark time because this was like the fourth or fifth time that we came to the table and we were like, enough is enough. And so we finally, for the first time, cut up our credit cards and we stopped making payments. So my entire life, I had never missed a payment on anything in my life. And again, thankfully, because of the credit card game, hadn't paid any interest. But I realized that we were not going to be able to quit until we cut those cards up and got rid of the ability to use the credit. So we cut them up, and for the first time in our married life and in my personal life, I'm sure yours too, we didn't make a payment to a credit card company. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Talk about, you were scared, right?
Yeah, I was like, is this even right or legal to do? Like, are they going to come take us away? I wasn't sure what was happening, but you had a plan, and
So in researching, we started looking into Dave Ramsey's literature. We started reading, what he put out, and we knew, and then in a sense, credit card companies are predatory. Again, 100% of the blame is on us, but they want you to spend, and they want you to be consumers, whether you have the ability to pay that back or not. But this is where we were at. We realized we could not get out of this. So we cut off our cards and we stopped making payments. And so for 2 years, we were receiving phone calls from the credit card companies, because how the credit card game works is they try to contact you for 4 or 5 months. And if you still don't make payments, they sell your debt to a debt collection agency. That debt collection agency then tries to come at you with letters, with phone calls, right? And they try to acquire, payments for your debt. And it's the same thing. If you don't pay them, then they sell your debt for a lower amount to it. They basically kick the can down the road. They'll sell it to another debt collection agency.
And we spent probably a year not answering the phone. We just wouldn't answer the phone if we didn't recognize the phone number, because we knew that it was an agency that we're looking for.
So eventually what they do is they just keep kicking the can down the road until you finally get to an agency that's willing to negotiate with you the amount. And so that's what we did for 2 years. And about that 2-year mark, we ended up being able to negotiate with those collection agencies a payout. Now, during that time, we were living by cash, because once you stop your first credit card payment, then all of your other credit cards dry up. You get a black mark, right, on your credit report. And so we knew that going in, and that's what we wanted. It's like an alcoholic. If they have alcohol around their house, they're going to drink it. Right. And so the way they go to detox, they go to a treatment center, you have to go somewhere where you're not going to have access. And so that's what we made the decision to do. We didn't want access, right? And so we made that decision. The credit card started to dry up. So we knew that within 2 years that it was going to come to that point where they would negotiate at a rate that we could afford to pay it off. And so that's what we did. We just started putting money away in the bank, waiting for that day and that right moment with each company where we could negotiate to pay that off. We did that. The first time in 16 years of our marriage, we were debt free.
And what I liked about that process is because we did not have credit cards, it forced us to live within our means, not to overspend. If there was no money for the clothing budget, we put cash into an envelope system. We didn't have any money for that month. So it taught us the discipline of what it meant to categorize our money. So when we were able to pay that off, we didn't panic. We had already had 2 years of disciplining ourselves with cash. Fortunately, we still had jobs. So our paychecks came in and we were able to pay our bills and figure out how to do it with just cash.
Retrain ourselves that we had to live within our means. I think that there are many people in the U.S. who live above their means. And so we realized that we had to come up with a budget. We had to live by cash. We took Dave Ramsey's course at our church. It was called Financial Peace, which was full of great advice on how we were going to snowball our debt and then begin to put money away in savings. So we did that. Again, the freedom that comes when you're debt free, incredible. But we also realized then with our job that for where we wanted to be, when we hit our 50s and when we hit our 60s, that we were going to have to create some type of side income in addition to what we were earning. And so, we started to look at a few different things that we could do to supplement our full-time income. And a friend who lived next door to us started selling on Amazon about 2 years prior. And because of where we were at financially, we were really just focused on getting out of credit card debt. But she started telling us about this thing called selling on Amazon. I remember as she was talking to us, it sounded too good to be true. It really sounded like a multi-level marketing scheme, because she would say that she purchases books at thrift stores or at library sales for like $4, and then she sells them on Amazon for $100. And so 2 years then, when we're out of debt and we start to realize we got to create a side hustle, I go to her and I say, okay, help me understand, how does this selling on Amazon thing work? Do you remember those days?
Yeah, I remember those days. I remember going to thrift stores, and I went straight to books that looked like college textbooks or medical textbooks. And we were actually in Chicago visiting your parents, and we went to a thrift store, and we came back with stuff, showed your dad how we were scanning it, and he said, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you found that down the street. So yeah, it was pretty exciting to kind of wrap our brains around what that meant, to be able to make money just by selling used books.
Yeah, so that was like 2015. And for the first time, like, I started, I guess what you would call our own business. And we kind of hit the Amazon game at the right time. Amazon really started to blow up like 2006, 2007. It's grown year over year ever since then. But what we did is we just started selling things around our house. So we started on eBay too. Mm-hmm. And so you can sell used stuff on eBay and Amazon. And just like Deanna just said, we started going to garage sales. We first raided the bookshelves in our house. And we sold everything in our house that wasn't nailed down. You could list it on Amazon as used. And then we just kind of progressed. We started going to big box stores like Walmart, Target. In our area of central Pennsylvania, there's Boscov's. And we started buying multiples of items there and then reselling them on Amazon. And I can remember that first year, we both still had full-time jobs, but we did about $120,000 in sales. And this was just the side hustle. But it was kind of growing at a pace that we had to decide, like, we either had to scale it down, right, because it was too much to manage along with the full-time job, or we started praying about, like, maybe this is a time for us to transition out of our chosen career that we had been doing for 15 years.
Right, yeah. Well, that was an interesting time. I remember, because we had been at our job for so long, we had a number of vacation days. And that year, or every year, obviously, when we were living in debt, we didn't have the money to do it, but we were doing it anyway. We would take vacations to Florida or go on a cruise. That year, I remember going on a cruise twice in 1 year, which was nice, during Thanksgiving break and spring break, and not using a credit card to go on the cruise. So that was really nice, just from flipping on Amazon. So some of those things I can remember, us being able to have the freedom to do that, and I became completely sold in this type of business model.
We prayed about it, and then we made the leap. We said, okay, we're not sure how this is going to turn out, but we left our full-time job, started selling on Amazon. That first year full-time, I think we did about $420,000 in sales. Again, just working out of our house. Prepping products here. And then every year since then, the business has continued to grow. It's interesting now as I think back, because at that table, at that 14-year mark, when we were so deep in debt, it was probably one of the darkest moments. I don't know about your life, but one of the darkest moments in my life. I felt like an absolute failure. And like, I felt like there was nothing that I was going to be able to do that I would be good at. Because when you're that far in debt after you've tried so many times and continued to fail, there is a perception of yourself of, for me, it was just abject failure. And I take my family super important, and I take my role in leading our family super important. And it's really the most important role that I cherish in my life. And I was a total failure. But out of that pain, out of that experience, I think that we were obedient to what we feel God had called us to do. And from that, I think blessings since that time, since we made that decision that we're just going to live within our means with what we earn, I feel like God's really kind of been blessing. What do you think?
No, I definitely agree. That was a turning point in our marriage. I can remember how hopeless you felt. And it really scared me seeing you so down, because you're usually the one that is the life of, of our family and at least cheering us up, and to see you down and me not being able to figure out a way to be able to fix it for all of us was really discouraging. So, I mean, making the move to sell on Amazon and finding this business model was, your redemption in some ways. And you've done a lot to lead other people in that same direction, just following your example.
Yeah, so we just wanted to make this video to share with you. We don't know where you're at in your financial journey. Hopefully you have not made the same mistakes that we did early on. But if that is where you're at, or if that's your season of life, just know, like, we were the absolute worst when it came to this. Again, we had $150,000 in credit card debt, had never owned a business, had never did any type of reselling on any platform. But just by kind of committing that we were going to live within our means, and then utilizing what we both think is the most powerful sales channel in the world, and it continues to be today, we were able to come to a place now where financially we are really set free from those dark days we were at 14 years in our marriage. So I hope this is encouraging to you. I hope that you live by those principles, that you are going to be debt free, that you live by cash, that you live within your means. But if you don't, I want to challenge you and I want to encourage you, make 2020 the year that you are going to live in sacrifice so that you can get to a place where you are free financially. There is no better feeling in the world than to live a debt-free life and to be able to not only go where you want to go, but to be able to bless others now out of the freedom that you yourself have worked so hard to get to.
Happy 2020. Here's to completely changing your mindset with your relationship with money, and we wish you the best.
Thank you. Have a great 2020. If you like kind of what we're sharing here, Deanna and I planned on doing more videos like this throughout the coming weeks and months in 2020. Hit the subscribe button. Do us a favor, if you like the video, hit the like button, and check out our other videos here about selling on Amazon and how you can start out with a great side hustle. And if you really enjoy it, you can turn it into a great full-time income.